Representative Sauke, thanks for joining us today. You're halfway through your first term here at the legislature. How would you say this has changed your day-to-day life?
I viewed this as answering the call, if you will, to community service. I have done community service all my life, my professional job. I taught school for a while, then owned a real estate company for a while. In that period of time, I would do various things. At the chamber, I was in leadership at the chamber, I was at the church, different ways I've answered the call to serve the larger community. And I really view this as just simply that.
And one of the committees you sit on is the House Capital Investment Committee, and I was talking to you a little bit earlier about Representative Tony Jurgens tweeted a picture of you guys. You were in Minneapolis, below the streets, 100 feet below, on a house bonding tour, checking out the storm sewer system. Tell us about that, and what do you learn from going on these tours?
Okay, that particular site, which is fairly straightforward in the explanation, they're having to replace old infrastructure. It is old, and it does need to be replaced. There's the going down and walking in those constructed waterways, which is essentially what they are. They're that low because they're trying to make up for the surface undulation of higher and lower. So if you go down that low, then everything is gravity, and the water can, in Minneapolis, the water can easily get to the river, even if you're that low. So, but it was clear and evident that there was a need for some work to be done and justification for what's going to take place. And that's what we gained from all of our tours, whether we were up in the far northwest Minnesota, northeast, all the four corners, plus then we did a urban tour of some projects that were yet to be seen in the close-in metro area. In a lot of cases, the pure benefit is that you can assess what it is physically that they're considering doing. It gives you a little clarity. It depends upon your personal experience and life experiences. I've obviously been through life a while, had a vast array of different kinds of experiences. So if you were to describe to me the sewer systems down there and why technically they're in trouble, I probably have enough experience in life to know what that is and didn't have to go down there to see it. Whereas somebody who's 25 or 30 years old, one of our younger, newer members, may not have life experiences that would be able to see that, where by description, I can see it. They need to see it, and they then gain the perspective.
A nearly $1 billion bonding law was passed in 2017 in a traditionally budget-setting year, the second year of the biennium, usually considered the bonding year. With that said, how big of a law do you think would make sense in 2018?
Depends upon what you're using as your metric for making sense. In terms of the demand and need, the amount of state assets, things the state is purely responsible for, the things that the state uses, focused in on their general missions, which would be primarily education, which is a constitutional mission and a constitutional demand, transportation, constitutionally connected, plus then you can start working your way through things as important to us as like Fort Snelling, a historic asset that we have to have. They can only be fixed through these kinds of financial structures. There's very little chance that you could fundraise to fix all of what the Fort Snelling would be, or all of what the buildings at the University of Minnesota and all the buildings at our state colleges. So then we do have to use this mechanism. The amount of money needed to probably make a sizable dent into that. The requests this year were $4 billion this coming year. $1 billion is going to barely scratch that surface. So the justification and need for a very concerted effort to repair these things, even in the near future, would probably be 4 years running of in great excess of $1 billion. Then what we would have done is we would have just moved the list down to probably something that's more manageable into the future. So $1 billion, not even close.
You're also a member of the Agriculture Policy and Transportation Finance Committees. What improvements can realistically be made in those areas in 2018?
I think in ag policy, the things are becoming evident by the fast nature that development of the process of growing, of agricultural business, and the things that are added to it, which is like weed control, disease control, those kinds of things, and then the speed at which they travel. And we've experienced that recently in the bird flu area. We've also experienced it recently in the loss of part of our infrastructure. So we know that the need in agriculture, both in terms of how the process of farming and what we use, are changing very fast. So oftentimes policy gets dated very quick. And we need to be continually listening to what is the experience of both the public and the producers, and to try to balance those needs and to make way for what is truly going to be a different way of seeing agriculture in the future. And it's also going to be to include the other side of the advancing scale of agriculture into the things that we are trying to preserve, the heritage of farming, which can be looked at as the small farms, the organic farms, the vegetable farms, and all of the other businesses that are starting to come up in addition to normal raising of animals or the raising of crops.
Most of your constituents reside in Rochester. It's a pretty big city. But you represent Cascade Township as well, a town of nearly 2,400 people. What issues are important to your constituents, and how do the needs for a smaller town like Cascade Township differ from a larger city like Rochester?
Cascade Township is just an extension of Rochester.
Okay.
It's nearly all urban, large acreages. So in terms of understanding where my district is residential or industrial, and also some other system kinds of things. There are probably 800 or 900 acres that is in rented crop production, but they are rented by farmers that are outside of the district and are just running those acreage. So the needs of the people in the district are primarily most easily understood in terms of suburban, urban understanding of the normal mix of things. I think that it's interesting, I grew up on a farm and I'm in our ag policy, that essentially what happens is it allows probably the voice of urban and suburban Minnesota to know that there's somebody there that actually understands the discussion and hopefully can help enlighten all sides to where the issues are.
You're a former band instructor. What was your favorite instrument to play, and what was your favorite instrument to teach?
Well, I grew up playing trombone, and I did trombone through college and into teaching, but I tell people that as you teach, you tend to lose your instrument and gain all the others. And so during that period of time, by the time I was probably a third of the way through my career, I could play all the instruments in the band. So then the one of the favorite sort of comes to mind. And I always had sort of a bias toward the oboe, which I think it's the sound of it. There's a certain complexity to the oboe and that sort of thing. And I think there's also a personality that the oboe is used for, and that's what drew me toward that particular instrument.